Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Creature from the Black Lagoon. Really, this creature, I guess, is to, in some way, be called the Gill Man in the IMDb. And I guess they figure, like, well, hey, instead of calling it the creature every single time, I guess they had to figure out some kind of name for this character. Really, we have in the early parts of this movie them trying to assessing what quite possible creature this could be, whether it could be a kamongo that means that this creature here could be similar to that kind of fish, or we could have a gill man on our hands. Really, I would honestly say this is probably the first ever black and white film. Maybe besides the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that original black and white film, this is probably the first black and white movie ever that I would ask immediately, why wasn't this movie ever remade? This movie is amazing. This movie, kind of gives off a lot of like Anaconda like vibes of the kind of slow way that they are to present this creature. But man, were these just approaches to this creature just amazing. I was honestly getting concerned a hefty amount for the person that was in the costume. How I'm like, man, how is it that they can get this person to get air underwater? Like, is there some kind of breathing apparatus for this person that we may not be able to see or be aware of? Because I was getting concerned for this guy when looking how, chintzy a lot of the equipment is probably during the 50s, which is about around the time I think when this movie was come out, I think 54. So I want to remind people that this movie is the black and white version of it, and more than likely there might be a remake eventually coming somewhere down the line. Yeah, I was really concerned for the man in the suit. Plus, it was actually really interesting how eventually when we had the guy in the mask who was to breathe in the mask, how the gills started to come up and down. I thought that was amazing. Going into this film, I really enjoyed this movie. I was surprisingly shocked on how good this was. Really, a lot of people could make the comparison that this movie made other films like The Shape of Water, or many kind of also kind of monster films that were to be like Swamp Things, or other kind of movies that were like big creatures from either in the water or something to have come on land. Really, I think you probably do not get Swamp Thing without Creature of the Black Lagoon. You probably just don't. But going into this movie, though, if you are to go out of your way to finally say that you have seen this movie because you have never seen this movie in your life, really, I would say that this is an amazing movie to watch. It feels timeless. It kind of feels that there is no bizarre-ish like moments where you're like, man, that feels like kind of just like off. There might have been some jump scares that might have been done in the 50s that probably don't work now, but really this is a hands down timeless movie that I think people could watch today and honestly get a good kick out of it, really do enjoy it. Really, if you want to go ahead and see this film for the first time, go ahead and go into a app that is logoed but not titled Fox HD Movies. Search that into a Google Play engine, and you should be able to pop up that app and be able to watch this for free. More than likely, the app will probably say like play 1080p movies, but that's just the title. I've searched the words Fox HD uh, movies, and this app tends to pop up right away. I've been using it for a fairly long time now, so believe me when I tell you that uh, like there's no fees. I'm not trying to trigger anybody into any kind of pay system or whatever. But yeah, the creature of the Black Lagoon. Oh my god! Thank God I finally sat down and watched this movie. I've been wanting to watch it for such a long time. Like I was like, man, like I would see movies like The Monster Squad, and they would have their variation of the creature of the Black Lagoon. And like I would sit and I would just watch Swamp Things and Swamp Thing movies, and just hands down a lot of stuff here and there that was like this. And then I finally was just like, you know what, I've always wanted to watch this film. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to drop everything right now and finally watch this film. And I'm happy that I did. This movie, like, really is a fun adventure. I know a lot of times people might say that this film is maybe simple, or maybe some people um, might find something about it that they may not like. But man, I was so happy with this film. Uh, Really, how a lot of times there's only times when you get to see the creature's hand come out, or like a grabbing thing going on, or the creature trying to get on top of this boat, which I'm like, good God, I felt so sorry for the creature who is going to have to consistently try to get into this boat or get onto this boat consistently. I'm like, oh my God, this guy who is going to have to schlub his way trying to get onto this boat to try to take these people down. How many numerous times did we have to transition this creature from the water to this boat? And I was like, God, like, I could just imagine this guy, like, probably just felt like near death while these things were going on. There might have been, like, I think there only was two different guys in the suit as well, who, here's the thing, they weren't even credited for for doing this. They weren't even credited for being the creature or the gill man. They weren't even credited for it. Like, evidently IMDb credited them for being the gill man, whether it was in the water or on land, because yeah, the movie didn't even credit them for their hard work. What kind of garbage is that? Um, so, with that said, yeah, I thought this movie was fun. Hopefully, finally, people will say, like, well, why is he saying that a black and white movie is so interesting? And maybe eventually someone will find this movie and watch it for the first time. Uh, it doesn't matter that it's black and white. It just matters that it's a good enough movie that I think it's a timeless film. Black and white, I don't care. We even have modern current films that have that black and white approach to it. So really, yeah, it's just about like if people are interested enough in checking this movie out, and I would highly recommend to do so. Uh, Really, like, yeah, this movie has kind of like Anaconda vibes. This movie has kind of uh like the old, like, kind of like a Jaws kind of vibe, but instead of having this huge gigantic shark, we have this creature that keeps on like attacking these people from their ship, eventually even like going and poking his hand into windows and coming after people. I thought that that was fun. I like that. And plus, it was interesting to also have these people not understand how strong or powerful this creature was. But it was also interesting to see how these humans were going to try to combat this creature. And I thought that was fairly interesting. So, with that said, I think it's about time to go into spoilers about this film. Really, without a doubt, if you want to finally see what this movie's all about, go into any movie app, especially the one that I've mentioned. Go ahead and check this movie out. It's great. If you don't want to go out of your way to say that you go into some movie app, go ahead into some kind of Amazon or some kind of system that has this app. You can rent or buy it or whatever, maybe like a Voodoo or something, and rent it and buy it if that's what you want to do. Or buy a copy of it and watch it if that's what you want to do, especially if you may have seen stuff like this before, and so you're used to seeing this kind of film. So, with that said, let's get into that double five time territory. More than likely, there might be some certain details that I am going to probably leave out. So if anybody's like looking and mentioning like, well, hey, he didn't mention about Dr. Floozy Hoozy, who said about the goopity goppity drug that hurt this monster. Like he didn't say like that specific name of the drug. Okay, but with that said, I think it's time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil. There we go. Misfire! Spoilers. So, Creature from the Black Lagoon. One thing that I think in previous videos, more than likely, I probably call this movie Creature of the Black Lagoon, because I never really knew if it was of or from. So more than likely, I probably have been saying this movie wrong for I don't know how long. So going into this now, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So the beginning of this movie gives us a narrator that is to narrate, to mention how God created Earth and the evolution of the world. And I'm like, so what? I'm like, what is going on in this movie? Like, it was kind of an odd beginning. It was kind of a jarring where they had like the evolution of man and like all that jazz. And I was like, what? I'm like, what are we going to go to, like, the beginning of time? Like, when was the Creature of the Black Lagoon, like, going after people? Was it in the dinosaur age where, like, he's going after cavemen and killing all of them? And then they're going to go into what is to be modern time? Like, I was a little baffled and confused about that beginning, but we push on. So, we have this, like, evolution of the opening of this film. I honestly thought it would have been cool if we would have had like the many years of this creature, the Gill Man, going and like attacking people through certain time periods. That would have been cool, but we didn't do that. But I thought that would have been cool. So we push on. So we have a doctor that is to be with two men. I think one of their names is Tomas and one of their names is Louis. I know, like, I was like going through this movie just kind of thinking like, man, they repetitiously mention Tomas a lot and they have to say it in that way. But luckily, I guess I remembered that name because there's other times where I forget things. But we have this Dr. Maya, I believe his name is. I could be ill pronouncing that. Dr. Maya, I'll call him Carl because evidently that's his first name. Carl is to be pitching a tent with these two men, and we have Carl who is to, I guess, be like like an archaeologist or like some kind of doctor that is to eventually find some bone or fossil of sort of the creature from the Black Lagoon. But that's not actually this guy. Different, like it's kind of like an ancestral thing. Like this thing has been going on and living for generation to generation. Hence, I was thinking that they were going to have like the creature of the Black Lagoon family at the end of this movie, but they never did. So Carl is to grab this fossil of this creature, and it's just his hand. It's just like his hand and his arm. And so Carl is to tell both Tomas and Lewis to, hey, just stay here. I'm going to go and take this uh, into other doctors and get their thoughts on this, and maybe get a lot of people to come back here to like check this whole thing out, find out where the origins of this creature could be. So Carl goes on to go into this science laboratory where they are to uh, all have this like aquarium in the back of them. But I think that's some kind of like TV or some kind of thing, because you can tell uh, when Jay is to look at the aquarium, it looks like she's actually there. But when eventually Kay is to go back into the room with all the scientists and they're looking and gawking at this fossil, all of a sudden the fish look way bigger in the background. Like it's like two different sets or two different places. Like it kind of confused me a little. Like they were doing this in two different spots. So they are all to gawk at this fossil and just be like, oh my god, we all need to go and we desperately need to find whatever the heck this is. And everybody is like, well, yeah, like, hopefully there's a real live specimen, or maybe we're just going to have to just keep trying to find more bones of this thing so we can kind of like have uh, evidence of this new species. So, like, they do a bunch of sciencey talking, bibbity hibbity hibbity swibbity. So, we are to have David Reed, Kay Lawrence, Mark Williams, Dr. Thompson, and a captain of this ship, which I don't know what his actual name is. I think that it is. I think it's Lucas. I could be wrong about that. Um, I think it's Lucas. So if I'm wrong, then I apologize. Uh, I'll just call him Captain. So we have immediately some of the people that are starting to complain about the boat that they had got, where really like people are like kind of complaining about like the specifics of the boat, and the captain's like, well, what, like, you're not happy about this kind of boat that had been chosen. And so we have David that rationalizes that, like, well, hey, there's no boat that can easily make its way through here, and like this is the best boat that we could get under the circumstances, kind of thing. Like I'm kind of like, I'm not saying it verbatim, but because we have, I think, Mark, who is complaining about how what the Dr. Maya couldn't get a better boat. And I just want the guy from Jaws to pop in there and just be like, we're gonna need a bigger boat, and then pop out and he just disappears forever. So Actually, they don't need a bigger boat. They just need a larger boat for this creature to not easily just climb on in every single moment of this movie. So we have we have this ship roaming along, and so while these people are to get their ship to make it back to the camp where Dr. Maya is to be located on, we have the creature who is to consistently put his hands out of this water consistently. To, like, I guess that is to kind of give us, like, the Jaws effect of just like, hey, look at this hand there, buddy. Isn't that scary enough? So, Gilman is to eventually go onto the surface and go and attack both Tomas and Lewis. And really, we don't see any gore here. We don't see any blood spilled. We really just see the creature with a hand on Lewis, and basically that's all we get to see. We then like pull back away from the from the tent to just kind of see like things moving around, but that's all we actually see. We don't actually see any murders taking place, of course, because why would we? Dr. Maya comes back to the tent to retrieve his men to find both of them dead. And it's like, well, that sucks, but I guess there's a reason why. Like, hey, at least they had a name in this movie. They could have been scavenger guy number 1 and 2. Like, they could have been called them, so at least they had names. So they go in to check out this tent to see that these people are dead. And immediately we have one person assessing that, well, hey, maybe it could be a cougar around here or a jaguar or like immediately we always come to a consensus that it could be some animal of sorts. But justifiably, I guess, like they were looking for an animal that had claws, and like that's what they were going with. So really that's the assumption people were making. Well, maybe it was a cougar or a jaguar, or maybe it was a bear, because that's always the thing that people say. Maybe it's a bear, or maybe it's a mountain lion, because they just pop up everywhere. I think they only say a cougar, but it is what it is. So they don't even bury these guys. They just go, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll just leave then and keep going on our exploration. So we have this group get back on their boat, make their way to this lagoon because they are to try to get samples or like some kind of like fossil or sample of the lagoon to see if the lagoon is to match where the origin of this fossil had came from, because I guess they didn't have an easy way to just prove that. So we have two men in 50s style scuba equipment. So people might just be like, wow, that is kind of interesting how like we like have drastically changed from kind of styles and stuff like that. Uh, Somewhere later down the movie, we have eventually David wanting to bizarrely do this one scuba equipment called the Aqualung, which I'm like, how? Why wasn't he using that like the whole entire time? like, what is the difference between the normal 50s style scuba gear and this aqualung like equipment? More than likely, somebody will Google that or somebody will figure that out. Um, was the aqualung something that they probably made up for this movie? I'm assessing and or assuming. So we have two scuba men going down into the water to find samples. We have one guy who is to get a sample and pull it from out of the this plant and pull it out from the water. And so they are to resurface, make their way back up to the boat. And so really it seems that there's no immediate danger. It seems that also we have seemingly everything going like, hey, there's no problem here. So we just have Kay who decides, you know what, I'm just going to go into a swim. Like, you know what, like these two guys could have just gotten surefire enough, just lucky, and there could actually be some horrific monster like an alligator or, God forbid, any other kind of swamp slash lagoon monster. But I'm just going to take my chances. So Kay goes into the water and is to just start going along and swimming. And so we have then where the gill man is deciding to pop his way out into the water to start to want to grab at Kay, because evidently the gill man, as well as any number of monsters that have been out since God knows how long, when you have a woman that is close by, a monster just desperately needs to grab him. Can I give me some of that? That's every monster for you. King Kong has a woman on the Empire State Building. Dracula tries to seduce women. Frankenstein eventually has a bride, but eventually he ends up having a good time with a little girl. So I guess there's that. But yeah, every single time, monster woman combination every single time. Hence why you have a movie like Shape of Water, I guess. So the gill man is starting to pop out from where of which that he had come from. Somewhere later in the movie, we find out that I guess the Gilman had been in a cave of sorts that is actually underneath the water, because David is to eventually find this cave while following the Gillman, and eventually he reappears into this like underwater cave later in this movie. Really just cool. So the Gilman is trying to grab Kay's legs. Kay is to realize that, and she's like, oh my god, something's grabbing at me. So Kay starts to swim like the devil back to the boat. We have the captain and all the men trying to see if they could net this monster, but the net is to I think malfunction or like have some kind of hole when they are to eventually bring it up, and all they see are like a thing of rocks and like pieces, and they were, I guess, to assume that maybe they were to think that they could get this monster from this netting, which wasn't the case because sharp claws. So we have both David and Mark who are to decide to, well, hey, like, let's go down there and try to get a picture of it, because really, hey, like Bigfoot and all the monsters that has ever happened before, like there is no true evidence of this thing. Plus also, we hope that we can get a really good picture of an underwater camera. I don't think so. If anything, like, hey, like bring your cell phone down there and just like, hey, me, Lagoon creature guy, selfie. And the Lagoon creature be like, oh yeah, hey, like let me put my claw around your shoulder and like, like, and then we'll take a selfie together. Yeah, it'll work. No. So we have them have this harpoon gun that they are to take down with them, because Mark is adamant about killing this thing. Like, he wants this thing dead. Or like, and like David is kind of much more hesitant about like capturing it or netting it or something like that. So both of them are to go uh, into this water to try to get a clear picture of it. And at first, we're assuming, well, is the creature not going to show up? And then the guys are just gonna be like, well, we didn't see anything. And then all of a sudden, like, the creature is to come up and then just grab them and, like, push them underwater, which actually would have been a really cool visual, but it is what it is. So, we have both these guys, and I'm not even sure if Mark is actually the correct name of the guy. But like he's kind of like the guy in a bulk of this film, so I'm gonna keep on saying it until it's probably incorrect. But that's okay. Mark and David go into this water, and so we have Mark, who is to have this harpoon and is to eventually, like, we start seeing this harpoon weapon eventually hit this gill man, but it honestly does nothing. Like, we have a lot of like pop shots in the back, or like some place that obviously wouldn't kill this thing. Like, it just kind of has the gill man eventually pull the harpoon out, uh, which it's obvious that more than likely they probably cut it to where like you can kind of tell that like the harpoon was probably just easily placed somewhere for this creature to take it out. It was okay. It looked good. But I was getting scared for the creature guy. I'm like, man, like this guy is swimming a lot in this water, and how is it that he's breathing? I'm concerned. Is this guy going to die? I hope not. Because that would have sucked. So this creature is going and popping out of these spots, and like these guys are defending themselves, shooting off this harpoon gun, and we we have both David and Mark that are trying to evade this thing, and David is trying to pop off pictures. So David and Mark go back onto the boat. Here's also the thing. There are several times that the Gillman is to go onto the boat, which I don't understand how he does, because there is no ladder where he is to get up on this boat. But man, like this guy must be a bajillion feet tall or something. Because good grief, how is this guy getting on this boat? Plus with the fact that mask, costume, everything. Like, how did he not, like, destroy this costume numerous times by simply just getting onto this boat? Eventually, there's one part in this movie where the creature is to try and get on this boat, and he ends up breaking one of the pieces on the boat, trying to get in the boat. Like, I wonder if that was on purpose, or maybe it was by accident, but they kept the take anyways. So the creature goes and starts going on to one of the boats and grabbing the lesser important characters. We have Gilman, who is grabbing a guy named Z and killing him. And so we really have the guys who are trying to figure out what this is. We have Kay, who makes the assumption that this could be a animal or a amphibian that is like the Kamingo, Kamango. Yeah, there we go. Kamango from the Devonian Devonian era, or Devonian. It's something like that. I'm probably saying it wrong. It's some era or some time period, but it doesn't matter. So she used to mention that this fish from a long time ago still lives today. And so more than likely this creature could be just like this fish that has lived for a very long time and is now just popping up for them to see. We also have, I believe, Mark, who is making the assumption that it could quite possibly be a gill man of sorts. And I guess they are to call that this creature, especially in IMDb, the Gill Man. And more than likely, I'm kind of interested to see what they call the creature of the Black Lagoon in the thing that looked like it in the Monster Squad. I wonder if they called that like Gill Man, or I don't know. I don't remember, but I remember that movie. So good enough. So we. Bleh. So they're making assumptions of who this creature is, and they need a plan to try to either capture it or try to kill it, because they have killed numerous amounts of their friends at this point. So we have the captain who makes the decision, well, hey, there is ways to actually uh, put drugs in the water, and this creature will eventually get high off of these drugs and eventually either surface or probably just get so high that eventually he might black out or something. So we have both David and we have Mark going into a smaller boat, and they are to sprinkle all kinds of this white powder all over the ocean, or all over the lagoon. So we have the I'm trying to avoid saying we have uh, creature, Gillman. The Gillman is to eventually surface, and while of course everyone is to be in the lower decks, and Kay is the only one outside of the boat. We the creature the creature appears to grab at Kay, and of course Kay screams. Everyone comes rushing out, and we have the creature is to back away. The men are to try to get at this thing. They are to see it start to swim off. The creature reappears. They have a light, like a bat signal, or a big light of sorts that appears to show the creature in this darkness. So both David and Mark go and retrieve this monster, because the creature is to all of a sudden look at this light and be like, ah, and then he falls over into the water. Both these men go out, try to retrieve this monster, follow it to its underground or underwater cave, pop out of the cave, and we have there's a bunch of men who are on land. Creature goes to attack one of the men behind its back, behind one of the men's back, and Kay is of course there again to yell and scream because of this creature. The creature goes and grabs Kay, hoists her up in his arms. David and Mark are to run to see this creature. The Gillman falls down while trying to hold this woman. I don't know if that was like a fudging take or what. like I'm kind of interested to like know like if like some of these were mistakes or not, or they were just like, oh no, that was meant to be that way. Like, yeah, he was meant to fall over. Uh, the Gill Man drops the woman, and they go thinking that they should kill this monster, but David is like, no, just put it in a net, and we'll cage the beast in our ship, and then we'll go and send him off somewhere to eventually get a ton of money. Because he's definitely an extinct species. They put this like bamboo slash like string ash like cage together that seems very flimsy. The Gill Man is kind of technically in some kind of water uh in this boat, so like I guess they like had some little spot they could put water in this boat so this guy won't die from not having water with him. Everybody is to go to sleep. We have Dr. Thompson and we have Kay talking to one another. Dr. Thompson is not paying attention to the Gill Man at all. He's just talking with Kay about things and not really paying attention to what's going on. The creature is to awaken and starts to try and break his cage, and then does so, pops out to say, oh, hey, how's it going? And is to grab Dr. Thompson and just start to try and crush this guy's skull. Dr. Thompson tries to protect himself by putting a lamp to this Gill Man. Because I'm assuming the Gill Man has a light weakness, or maybe just a lantern weakness, because I don't think any number of these lanterns were actually lit in front of this creature. So the Gill Man has a weakness for lanterns. We have figured it out. All we need to do is just have Green Lantern come into this movie, and this creature is toast. Yeah, that's all we need to do. Just send Ryan Reynolds in there with a green CGI'd suit and a ring that looks green enough to take this thing out. Like, I am Green Lantern from 2814 to take you down, creature from Black Lagoon. It's funny. So, we break this lantern on the creature, and this creature is to burst into flames, and Thomas also gets hit a little bit of that. So this creature is starting to like flame on. The creature dives into the water, and I believe we had people who were to try and dive after him, but I could be wrong about that. But they are to bandage up Thompson like a mummy, send him into some bed where he is basically defenseless because eventually the creature just wants to pop his hand into a window to tell Dr. Hops to check on Dr. Thompson, to just say, hey buddy, like, how's the leg? How are you feeling? Like, are you feeling good? And and we have like David and Kay and Mark all seeing this because like David and Mark are fighting things out. Eventually they punch one another. So the Gill Man pops his hand out to just be like, hey Dr. Thompson, how's the leg? How's your head banging going? And so Thompson is desperately trying to move or something to alert people. And David is to spot this. David is to try to get the hand back away and close this window and seal it so no hand be popping out anytime soon. they're like, man, we need to do something about this Lagoon guy. Like, I think we need to figure out how to get rid of him. Because really, just drugging the guy just won't exactly do. Dave is to desperately want to just get the heck out of here. Dave and everybody are to drive this boat back to the opening to get out of this lagoon. We find there is a dam there. There is a bunch of just branch and trees just sploot out everywhere. Splooted. Yeah, they got splooted. That's not a word, but I said it now. Splooted everywhere. Splood. Bunch of trees. A dam. Good dam. Anyways. They're like, oh my god, well, can we, like, drive through it? And they're like, no. So they have to go and try to, like, rig some roping system to try and pull this thing up and out. They try to put a rope around it, but the creature is like, nah, you guys aren't leaving yet. I still have to go and say hello again to Dr. Thompson. Like, you guys prevented that, so I'm a little angry. I'm a little upset. Like, I was, like, trying to make a friend there, and you guys just, like, butchered that. So I'm going to go, and I'm just going to unhook the thing that you just hooked in my dam. So everyone is to look that, like, the rope had got unhooked. And so they're like, well, I guess we have to, like, go into the water, make sure this thing gets hooked in here. And so when David and Mark are to try to go in here, we have the creature who's like, no, you're not getting into my dam. It's not going to happen. We have the creature attacking at them. We have Mark that is desperately telling David, hey, how about you put the rope onto the dam, and I will go with the harpoon gun to try and kill this thing off to help you get this thing done. And David is like, no, I like you just want to kill this thing off. You just desperately want to kill this thing off. So, like, they get in a punching fight about it. One punch goes to one person. He no-sells it. The other guy goes and punches this guy out to just have him just go like, my jaw. That really just hurt my poor old jaw. That's so weak. So, a little high there. So David goes out to try to hook this thing again. The creature is to come in, and Mark goes with his harpoon gun and tries to litter this thing with harpoon shots. Again, the Gill Man just takes one of the harpoons out of his back, and he's like, are you serious, bro? Tosses it off to the side. We have... The Gill Man is just getting angry at this point. So Gill Man is like, you know what, guy that keeps wanting to shoot at me and just evidently just doesn't like me, I'm going to go and grab you and tear through your scuba equipment and just try to rip you to shreds and push you down further into the water and murder you. Because I just thought that we could all be friends. But I guess I was wrong about this, so I'm going to go out of my way to kill you. So this guy eventually gets shredded by the creature, pops his body back up onto the water. David is to pop his body back up to the water and just be like, yeah, like, this guy's dead. They eventually pull away this dam with this rope thing, because what they do is David decides that he's going to try this rope thing again. But this time around, he is going to have that drug that they had been using into a spray like mechanism that is to spray in the water or just on the surface to get into the face of the gill man to just kind of baffle and confuse the gill man and to have him just back away and they or David continues to have to spray this mist into the gill man and eventually gets the rope on the dam. They pull this out. There is a point in here. It gets a little fuzzy at some point. This leads them to have the creature grab the woman from off of this boat and takes her down into the water, into the underground cave and through the island. The men are to chase after this thing. David is to jump in the water to follow this thing. And oh my god. They have guns with them, the men. They have guns through this cave. They are to go and shoot at this creature eventually when Kay is to get free. They repetitiously pelt bullets into the gill man, and David eventually tells the people to stop. Like, I think he's had enough. I think he's been shot enough. Gillman is to retreat and go into the water, and we are to assume that he was to get killed off. Because the Gillman just starts floating into the water. That could mean any number of things. That one, he was killed off, or that he just needed time to heal in the water. Maybe the water has healing properties. I don't know. For this creature, who knows? The creature is to float off in the water, and the movie is to end. So, so there's a scuffle in the cave. Dave tries to retrieve Kay with Kay's bandana top on. That looked so weird to me. As if, the Gillman bizarrely needed, a hostage to... hey, since I don't get what I want, I'm going to steal one of you as a hostage. I'm gonna negotiate your friendship for this K woman. That's what I'm gonna do. And if it doesn't go my way, well, you're just gonna have to shoot me up and kill me. Because that's basically what happens in the movie. The creature is desperate for friendship. That's the way I see the movie. Anyone can see it as oh no, he's a horrific being. No, he desperately wants friendship. If anything, this movie does remind me a lot of the film Chud, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dweller. Really, that movie reminds me of this, especially when they consistently do that hand movement, because that happens a lot in the Chud movie. They try to avoid using the actual creature through a bulk of that film. Unless it's small second shots here and there, and then they cut to the next scene. Where that's not exactly what happens in this movie. We do have much longer shots of the creature. Plus, there's a amazing amount of undersea long shots of this creature, and I was like, man, like they're putting out a lot of time with this creature fellow in the water. And I was like, and this movie is like an hour and change. I was like, could you imagine if they did a 3 hour movie where it's just guys going into the water, creature goes into the water. Like it's like that Jaws saying where it's like 8 men go into the water, 7 men come out of the water. Like if they would have kept going back and forth with that for like 3 hours, it would have gotten old. It would have gotten really old. But I think that this movie had a perfect enough things going on with it that I think did win people over. I think eventually when it came out. And plus, also, I hope that if people are still interested in this movie, maybe this movie will win you over if you had seen it fairly recently or if you remember this film at all. So, with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here because I'm almost talking almost the length of the movie. So, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.